Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is Lucky's Misadventures, or I guess technically Lucky's Misadventures, episode 42, Lost in Oddtopia. I'm really interested to know what episodes 1 through 41 are, but regardless, this is a very, very fantastic little deck building game that actually kind of turns deck building on its ear a little bit for me, and takes maybe what I consider to be a tired old mechanism and presents it in a way that is both fun and new and exciting. And also, I really dig the presentation of this game. Great Northern Games is a company based in Minnesota. Obviously, I live in Minnesota. And Jay, the guy who runs it, and the guy who is the game creator, really nice guy, and I've had a lot of conversations with him. And I saw this game at Gen Con back last year. And I really when he showed me, this was what he showed me, actually. I really like this. When I showed this to my daughter, she was like, "What's the comic book you're reading?" And I kind of like that. I dig that the way that they've gone with the artwork for this is that it is just kind of this really fanciful type of world. And that's Pumpkin Ted there, you can see there in the front. And anyway, Jay kind of explained the game to me, and he kind of ran me through a turn or two, and I really just dug what he was doing with it, as far as how there was a little bit of chaos thrown into the world of trying to put your deck together, if you will. I've enjoyed deck building games to a certain degree, but it's one of those things where it's it just seems like a lot of it's already been done, and you have games that kind of just, yes, they're solid, and they present themselves in a way that this all makes sense, or it's just very smooth, and it's very a very cultured experience. But there's so many of them that I just feel like they're standing on the shoulders of giants that came before them. Obviously, the Thunderstones and the Dominions, and what have you, that were there before them, but they're not branching off from those shoulders enough for me to say, well, why wouldn't I just play Dominion? That kind of thing. And so when I was I saw the art, and I was like, whoa, that looks really cool, Jay, what is it? And he's like, oh, it's my new deck building game. And I was like, oh. But I gave it a shot, and I really, really, really dig it. So let me show you how this game is played. It's gonna, there's probably, who knows, maybe there's a deck building game out there that's very much like this, but I've never really encountered one. And for me, it was a breath of fresh air, and I really, really enjoyed it. So let me show you how to play Lucky's Misadventures, and we'll come back here and we'll talk a little bit more about why I dig it. Alright, so this is Lucky's Misadventures, and I've just gone ahead and set up the game. I'm going to describe the different decks to you here in just a little bit. But just like most deck building games, one of the first things that's going to happen is you're going to have a starting deck of cards. Now, and I'll put this one down just for a second. So your deck is going to have your starting cards. You'll have these Scarecrows, Lions, Tin Men, and then you have Lucky. Everybody gets a Lucky card. You're all considered, I guess, to own a lucky dog, and these cards, they're pretty standard as far as these cards, like the Scarecrow cards, they have a +1 to your buy, whereas these Lion cards and these Tin Man cards, you'll notice they don't have a plus to the buy, but they have this little symbol up here that has a little +1. I'm going to describe that here in just a little bit, but it's an important thing to note that each one of these cards has these different symbols up there, and so this is the Oddlings, the Wickeds, and the Tinkerers. Now, one of the cool things about this is that most deck building games you play where you're adding cards to your deck, one of the main ways you add it is just having buy power, right? But having cards that have these little symbols up here, you are in conflict or contest with the other players at the table, because you can get free cards by having the most of these points, and I'll get into that here in just a little bit. Now, this card right here, this is a Hireling card, and these are the same as these cards here. This is the Hireling deck. Now, obviously, all the cards are going to have the same back because of the fact that you want to be able to tell what the cards are. So, like, there's a White Rabbit card, and then there's that one, the Winged Monkey, and then there are these guys, the Clockworks. So, you'll notice that these have a +2, so they're a little more powerful than like the standard cards you have. And then the White Rabbits, they have a +1 buy, and your first White Rabbit played gets an additional +1. So like a rabbit would be worth, your first White Rabbit, if you played it on your turn, would be worth +2 buy power. However, the next White Rabbit will only be another +1. That's what that means. So you get to pick one of these cards. Now I just want to point out down here you can see that this little one there, any number that's down in the bottom right, that is the victory points that the card is worth. And I'll talk about victory conditions later, but obviously there is going to be a victory condition that whoever has the most points will win. And then over here, that's the amount of buy that you need to purchase the card. Now, the Hireling deck is just like it is. There's one card on the top, and that is the only one you can buy. When you buy that one, then the next one becomes available, and so on and so forth. Also, like, you get to pick one, like I did. I picked this one, and you get to put it into your deck, and that is your hand. All right. A couple other things here. You can see that there's these two decks, and then there's this deck over here. So this deck, these are the Mavens. These are really, really powerful allies that you're going to be able to add to your deck. And they're going to belong to one of the three. Each one of these is going to belong to those three factions. You can see here, this is an Oddling, here's a Wicked, here's a Tinkerer. And these also have these special powers that they invoke. So like Cyber Glinda, target opponent must discard one in-play junk or machine card, and then you choose the card. And so like you can see here, it gives you +3 to the Tinkerer, so that would, once again, that's like that secondary way that you can earn cards, which I'll talk about here again in just a little bit. And it would cost 3 buy power to purchase this, and it's going to be worth 3 victory points at the end. Now you might notice there's this little symbol down here, and that little symbol is also, like, there's one here on this Queen of Spades card. You can see it's a little like hand holding a wand there. And then over here, it is, here we have a Tinkerer, the Junk Man, and you can see here this guy holding a cup down there. All right, so that's a very important distinction. So, and I'm jumping ahead here just a little bit. I'm going to get back to these cards here. But this deck right here, this is the deck of the Fates. Whoever is the first player has this Feed the Toad card. So, in this crazy world that Jay, the designer, has created, there's basically this large mechanical toad from aeons past, right? And every day, like, it basically, there's this, and I really like this, there's kind of like this weird slot machine type effect where 3 images appear on the toad, and so then the toad, and like everybody comes and sees like what the toad says, and then the toad kind of tells everybody what is going to happen that day, and they call it feeding the toad. And so what happens is that you're going to turn 3 cards over, and then there's a cup, and then we got a special card, the Magician, and then we have a wand. Alright, so first of all, this is kind of cool. I'm glad I got one, so I didn't dig one of these out. So, the Magician, like, this one just tells you, all in-play card actions may be invoked, all other major arcana have effect. This is a major arcana effect. But the Magician says all in-play card actions may be invoked. That's a very important faction. It means nothing to you right at this instant. But if that card wasn't here, let me just see if I turn the next one over, what I get here. Okay, let's say we had, well, yeah, that's not the best way to explain it. But, for example, one of each of these symbols has appeared. Meaning that if you played one of these cards, you'd be able to use the power that's on there. Here, let me just turn one over here. Like, yeah, man, I'm getting unlucky here with my draws. All right, so let's say it was that, right? And you had one of these cards that has the little guy with the cup on the bottom. So if you played this card, you wouldn't be able to take the action that has, because The toad did not say that the cups were available. So that's why the fate is really important. The other thing that's important, and I'm going to actually put the cards back on top so we can actually like see what we drew here. The other thing that's important is you got to look at these cards and see this little symbol here. This little arrow that's kind of going clockwise. When you draw that, what you're going to do is you're going to take the toad card and you're going to distribute that around the table, the number of spots equal to the number of those symbols. And whoever gets the toad is the first player for that round. So you never know who's going to go first. So when you reveal special cards or things that maybe you want or what have you, like you've got to hope that they're still there when it's your turn, or like hopefully you get to go first. It is very possible, depending upon the number of players that you have. Like if you were playing this as a 2-player game, this would go to the other person and straight back to the person that had run it. You might not get any of those symbols, so it would just stay with the person that has the Feed the Toad card. But remember, you have to move that around, and then the person who's in charge of the Feed the Toad card is the person that draws those fate cards. Now, you might have noticed that there's these fate cards off to the side. The reason those are off to the side is because those 3 are taken off the top and put up to the side at the beginning of the game because of the fact that you could count the cards and figure out how many are left and have a kind of an idea of what is left. The Fate Deck is also the timer for the game. You will go through this Fate Deck twice, and that signifies the end of the game. Now, the game can end early if somebody can take care of one of the other winning conditions before that happens. But otherwise, you go through this Fate Deck twice, and then everybody just totals up their victory points and sees who wins. All right, so now backtracking just a little bit, and I do apologize for this. You have this, you have the junk deck, and you have your machine deck. Now the machine deck is all face up, and basically everybody can paw through this as much as they want to look for the machine that they want to build. So you know that you have a situation where like only the top card is available type of thing. But the junk deck is just like anything else. There are cards that you can purchase and you can put into your hand. Now the whole trick is that you want to be able to get junk cards into your hand at the same time that will allow you to build these different machines, because the junk cards really don't do much. I mean, even if you pay 6 coins to get this luminous aether, yeah, sure, it's worth 3 victory points, but it doesn't do anything. It just kind of sits there and takes up space. But you have these machine matrices, and you can see that, like, if you had, like the luminous aether plus one of those clockwork gizmos, and you played those on your turn, you'd be able to get a fate clock. And let me just dig out a fate clock. I can show you, what that is. So, and then obviously, then if you have like these special things, like here so you get this card, and it says add the fate value of all 3 fate cards, and these are the fate cards over here. And then if it is 3 to 12, choose and play 1 card from your draw deck, and then reshuffle. Acquire 1 Maven card from the Maven thing. So you would have these special abilities. Also, like I said, I should have pointed out, there's these numbers on those as well. The numbers will be used by a lot of these different powers and cards. Other than that, they don't. Those cards in the top left don't mean anything. So that is what the junk cards are used for. And obviously, like, you have these 2 large decks, and so as you purchase these things, you're going to replenish those. You're going to replace the cards that are taken. So pretty straightforward. Now here's the thing about how a turn works. So you have your 11 cards, you'll shuffle them up, and get them ready to go. And you'll take the top 5 cards off of your hand, and you'll have it. This is, as of right now, that's pretty standard for any deck building type of game. You take those cards in your hand, you're going to play them on your turn. But the way it works is that you will look at the cards that you have in your hand, and then you will play 3 of them. Normally 3. Sometimes you'll play more, but usually you'll play 3. You'll play 3 of those cards. You pick the 3 that you want to play. In this case, like, you could have, the winged monkey and these 2 lions. I could take those, and the reason why I'm going to take those is because I'm going to probably then win, this trickster thing, and I'm going to explain that to you here in just a little bit. Or I'm sorry, the wickeds. And you put those face down. Everybody puts their cards, and you keep these 2. and you keep those off to the side. So you have these 3, and then you say like 1, 2, 3, and everybody turns over their cards, and then starting with the person that has the Feed the Toad card, they'll take their turn, and then you'll go around the table. Now here's the thing with having those cards. Now normally what you would do is, like, if you have buy power, you buy cards in your turn. If you have any special abilities, because these Maven cards, like, like this one allows you to play another card, stuff like that, you're going to invoke those actions as long as you are able to invoke the card's actions because of the cards that are in the fate area that allow you to do that. So you will, you'll go through your turn, and when you buy stuff, you can buy 2 things. And everybody can buy 2 things. This isn't a game where it's like you get plus buy. You just get plus buy power. And so you can purchase 2 things as long as you have, like, the wealth given to you through your cards to get those things. But after you have completed, like, everybody's done their turn, you're going to look at each person's, like, total score for their tinkerers and their wickeds. And so in this case, like, I have 4, and most likely at the beginning of the game, with those 3, I'm not going to have anybody like challenging me as far as that goes. So you do the Tinkerer's challenge and then also the Wicked challenge. And so, like, with the Tinkerer's challenge, you total up your total Tinker power, or in this case, like, the Wicked power, and then you compare that to everybody else who's playing. Now, the person that has the most Tinkerer power will be able to get a junk card for free. They'll just be able to take it and put it into their discard pile, completely free. And then if 2 or more players are tied, then each player that is tied for the highest total power may acquire 1 junk card. So if you're tied, that's fine. You can get that. But if you have, and then the cards that are acquired in turn, they're acquired in turn order. So, like, if this person and this person, had tied for the most of that power, like, this person would get to go first, and then that person. So, like, as far as, like, what's available and what's taken. Now, the trick is that the person that acquires that junk card, they have to take the card that is worth the least when it is tied. And so if you look here, it's like there's a 3, a 4, and a 5, and a 6. They would have to take this 3. And then, like, so if 2 people are tied, somebody would take that one, and you turn it over, and you have this one. So now there'd be a 5. So then the next person would be able to take that 4. Now, if you win the Tinkerer challenge by 1 point, 1 power point, that's considered to be a minor victory, and then you can take any of these, your choice, that is worth 5 or less. And if you win the Tinker Challenge by 2 or more points, then you can take any of them that you want, even one that's worth 6, like this one over here. Now, the Wicked Challenge is the same way, except for the fact that you get one of the Mavens up here. So in this case, like, if I had 4 and, like, the next person had like 2, that would mean I'd win, like, by 2 points, and I'd be able to take any of the Maven cards that I wanted. And be able to add that to my deck. So I can take this really good. This good one, the Queen of Spades. It's like double the buy power of any one of your in-play cards. Actually, that's really good ability. So you can see, like, having, like, the universal buy power is great, right? Because you have some maneuverability there. But just by having some good cards like this at the same time will allow you then to get that. Now, here's one of the things that I figured out after I was playing. I was like, well, geez, it's like you take these junk cards, and it's like, but they're added to your deck, so even if I really wanted to build, like the time machine, it's like the time machine, or if I wanted to build, like, the dark energy machine, like, I really have to, like, hope and pray that I get those 2 cards in my hand at the same time. Well, here's the trick. Because of the fact that you have these 2 cards that you saved from the last round, you have the option of discarding those at the end of the hand or holding on to them for the next one. So if you have, like, let's say we wanted to build like the Dark Energy Machine, which needs 2 of those Luminous Aether junk cards. So let's say you have 2 of those in your hand, but you only have 1 of these. You get to keep it in your hand and hold onto it, and then you get to cycle through your other cards until that one pops up, and then you're able to do that on your turn. Now, I mean, that's just one of those, like, cool things about the game that, like, I like the fact that you are able to like just hold on to that one, right? And it allows you to have some long-term planning or whatever. A lot of deck building games, I really kind of, it's like you have to like figure out the percentage chance that you're going to be able to like have a certain card or whatever show up at a certain time, and you have to like build a deck to give you those chances of those things occurring. But in this case, you don't really have to do that because I can just hold on to that one card and keep cycling through. But anyway, so after the turn is done, you then get to go ahead and discard, and then you draw back up to 5 cards, and you just keep cycling through. So now there's if to win, there's a couple things you can do. So if you play a time machine and you have a reactor pump, which are 2 of the things, so it's like you have a time machine, which actually here, let me show you. Let me go through this. So like time machine, you need, and I will of course you need to have 2 of these flux capacitor cards. If you can build a time machine, then you'd be able to go ahead and have that. And then if you have a reactor pump as well, then you'd be able to basically go back in time to a point where you never actually ended up in this alternate world, and you wouldn't have to worry about having been teleported there. That's one way you can win, and then you just win automatically as long as it's before the end of the game. You can get Unite the Three Sisters of Greed, Despair, and Vanity, meaning that you have to have all 3 of those cards. Now those cards are actually these Maven cards, and that's of course I gotta find one now. So like here's Vanity. And so, like, she's one of the 3 sisters. And if you have all 3 sisters, and you can see there's a little symbol there that shows that it's one of the sisters. If you can have all 3 sisters and put those into play, you can then show, like, okay, Unite, here's Despair. And there's more than one of each. It isn't like they're unique cards. So, I mean, it isn't like, oh, I didn't get Despair. Well, I guess I can't win that way. And then, of course, I can't find the last. There we go. And there's Greed. So, if you can combine all 3 of those, then you'll win, because the 3 sisters are happy with you and they send you back. Or you can convince Pumpkin Ted to manipulate the power of the Great Mechanical Toad to open up the portal to your homeworld. And Pumpkin Ted, you saw him on the front of the thing. Let me find Pumpkin Ted, and you can check him out as well. And here's Pumpkin Ted. And it says, if you have a Clockmakers and a Fate Clock card in play, you win the game. Because Pumpkin Ted actually opens up the Great Mechanical Toad and opens up a portal back to your home. Now, those are the 3 automatic ways you can win, and I've won those ways, and that's kind of cool. It's kind of a fun way to, like, hey, look, I won the game, and it can be over, like, relatively, not quickly, but compared to, like, playing through the Fate deck twice, it is. Or, like I said, you can go through the Fate deck twice, and whoever has the most points wins the game. There's just so much about this. I mean, I know that in the past I've had videos where I've talked about deck building games, and I'm just like, ugh. It takes a lot for a deck building game to make me enjoy it, and this one had a lot going for it. I really liked the art, I really liked the theme, and I liked the fact that it kind of brought something new to the table for me. A lot of deck building games are a lot of retread of like of past information and past games, and it just kind of slaps a new theme or slaps a new look, to it. But this one, it has the multiple different decks. It has multiple ways to get them. It has a cool way of like holding on to certain cards and cycling through and trying to like put together like specific things. And plus, there are actually ways for you to mess with other people, making them discard cards, making the trash cards in their hand, things like that. So you can actually kind of interact with each other instead of just doing your own thing and just kind of racing to see who has the best chance to win at the very end. So for all those reasons, I really, really liked Lucky's Misadventures, but let me talk a little bit more about all of that in my final thoughts. Alright, so that is, I even caught it the right way. That is Lucky's Misadventures. There's so much more to the game that I never really got the chance to show you. I didn't want to go through like every single card. Basically, I mean, you have this giant deck, right, of these different Maven cards, and all these like are really cool and like have all these. But I mean, yes, okay, they have certain abilities that you like come to expect to find and see in different things. But then, like, here's the Worcestershire cat. Worcestershire, like Worcestershire cat, like Cheshire cat, but Worcestershire, and like that's kind of the thing I like about it. I do like the theme. I do like the fact that it seems to be playing off a lot of different, um, oddball concepts. Obviously your starting cards. You have a rab. You have the lion. You have the scarecrow. You have a tin man. Like obviously we know where that's going from. And obviously this has a very Dorothy and Toto type of thing going on as far as the Lucky and what have you. But here you have like the Worcestershire cat, well the Cheshire cat, and then like this card allows you to trash other cards. You have like the Winky Waddler, this cool little gremlin guy, and it allows you to draw cards and stuff like that. So it has like these things that like you've come to expect. But they present them in a way that I found to be very, very interesting and really, really cool. And I liked, like here's obviously Alice in Wonderland, just like a cool picture of Alice, like a evil picture, a picture of Alice there. And this one, like here, target opponent must discard their lowest power in play wicked card. And the target chooses the card. So like once again, as I said, these are things that like you actually get to attack other people and affect what they're doing, and that is like where like the turn order comes into play a great deal, because a lot of this stuff is simultaneous as far as revealing your cards and what have you, but it is one of those things where it's like, oh, the turn order of like you can then that person, like the person that just played Alice, can see somebody that like they're going to have like some special power or special ability, but they do it before that person gets to go, and all of a sudden that person like they've had a negative impact to their turn, which the other person has created. And yes, okay, that can maybe like some people don't like games that are like attacky like that, but I like games that are attacky, and I like being able to mess with other people. I like being angry with other people, and wanting to get revenge. If they mess with me too much. And I've enjoyed that. Now, I mean, the attacky cards, yes, there exist, but it isn't overly done though either. It isn't like every single turn. It's like by the time you finally have your action, like they totally, the rest of the table has obliterated you and taken you out, that sort of thing. It doesn't really kind of have that, but there's just enough. It is a delicate balance, right? It's like if you have too much, you start straying into that take that type of game world, where like those take that games aren't necessarily bad, but they don't necessarily allow a lot of strategy or forward thinking for players, because all you're doing is just jabbing at each other the entire game. But if you have just the right amount, like you have you as a player, like even if you think somebody's doing better than you and you think they're like getting better cards or whatever, like you are under the impression that if you can just have a like the right spot, the right moment to be able to like make that person discard a card or trash a card that's in their hand, that sort of thing, you can like get a leg up on them and improve the position that you're in. So I like that, and I think it's really well done. Now overall, like I said, showing you how to play, there's just things that I really like. I really like the feed the toad part. Like as far as, oh, well, here's the 3 cards that, and these are the cards that are going to allow you to do certain things. Now you look at your 5 cards and you see if you're going to be able to use the powers that are on those cards, depending upon what those feed the toad cards are going to be. I just like that. I like that reveal moment. I like that, like, oh, and the nice thing is that, okay, well, I have this really good card, but a wand didn't show up, so I can't use it. So like you have your Queen of Spades card, right, and you want to be able to use that double buy power. Well, but a wand card didn't show up. Okay, well, I'm only playing 3 cards, so I can put this with one of the 2 cards I can hold on to it till the next round, and then the next time it comes, then yeah, okay, then I'd be able to use this, and then maybe I can put a really good buy card that I have with this, so I can double that buy power. So I know, okay, so this turn maybe I didn't get to do exactly what I wanted to, but I know the next turn I'm going to be able to, and so it's stuff like that like it just feels right. It makes you feel clever. It makes you feel like you're actually making good choices, and it makes you feel like you've done the right thing as far as with the purchasing the different cards and putting them in your hand. I really like the junk cards. I like be able to build those machines. The cool thing, I didn't mention this, when you build a machine, you actually get to use the ability of the machine right away that turn. It's just to add a little benefit of you build that little machine, and so that can be one of the first things you do. Is like you build the machine, oh boom, you put that out there, and you have it, and now you know you have that machine card that's going to cycle through your deck and be able to use it. So I mean, there's cool stuff like that going on as well. And it's just, as I said, the theme of the game plus the art of the game, really, really good and really, really fun. And I flat out liked it. And you know, for me to like when I would get done playing it, oh, and I didn't even talk about how the game ends. So it's like being able to, you know, like end the game in like a specific way, like having the right cards in your hand and holding on to them and cycling through to get those cards rolling, as far as like having the three sisters or what have you. Cool way to end the game and like be able to like finish it off early. You know, things like that I really enjoy. And I just, you know, it wasn't just like a victory point engine, you know, churner outer type of game. You know, like, you know, so I can't say enough just how it just, like, I guess it took like that deck building genre of the game and presented it in a way that was fresh and exciting, and it made me want to play it again as soon as the game was done. It was like, oh, I lost, you know. It's like, let's try it again. Let's go. Let's do it again. And that for me is the mark of a really, really good game. That after you get done, you immediately want to set it up and try again. Yeah, this is a keeper, and I'm really looking forward to seeing like the final published version of it. So there you go. That is Lucky's Misadventures. If you have any questions, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch this video, and until next time, I'm the Undead Viking. I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.